Hello everyone, welcome back. So in IBM S series till now we have covered about the routing node and we have seen all nodes related to routing. Okay. Now in this lecture let's start with the HTTP node, and in HTTP node we are going to cover all these 6 node. Okay. So let's directly go to toolkit and let's understand the HTTP node. So when you will go to toolkit, okay, I have already created a small application with the already to save some time. Okay, so you can do like that. You can just click on new application. You know the you know this thing very well, and you can write here as a HTTP node app, okay, or anything name, that application name you want to create. I have given the application name as the HTTP node app. Under this, I have created the view of the message flow. For this lecture, I am going to cover you the HTTP input node and the HTTP reply node. Okay, so let me just go to this message flow, HTTP input. So I have created a message flow with the name HTTP input underscore HTTP reply message flow. Under that, if you see, this is the message flow I have already designed with the with the user. I have used the three nodes. First I have used the HTTP input node, second I have used the compute node, and the last I have used the HTTP reply node. Okay, if you see the in this template we have the two sections, right? Toolbox and the connector. In the previous class we have seen the uh, one of the uh, connectors, one of the routing, we have seen the routing template from the toolbox, and under routing we have seen the all the thing, right? In this lecture we are going to cover the one of the connector, and if you go below here in the connector section, you will see a connector name with the HTTP. Okay, and under HTTP you will see the HTTP input node, HTTP reply node, HTTP request node, HTTP header, HTTP asynchronous, and HTTP asynchronous response. So asynchronous request and asynchronous response. Okay, before starting the explaining the each node and what I am doing, I just want to give you a brief of why basically we use the HTTP node and what's the benefit of using the HTTP node. Okay, so if you remember, I have explained you also previously also, there are two type of communication. Okay, first is a synchronous communication and asynchronous communication. Just let me write here also, so it will be a better. There is a one is a synchronous communication and another is a asynchronous communication. Okay, I just written in short. Okay, so you know synchronous, what is mean by synchronous and what is mean by asynchronous. Okay, just let me quickly brief you. Okay, synchronous means a communication that is real time, and when a request is sent, response is expected quickly within a certain period of time. Okay, asynchronous means it is a non-real time application, and response is not expected quickly. It can be, what I said, it can be get later. Okay, so that's the simple difference. This is a real time application and this is a non real time application. So in other word also, if I say that in synchronous communication, if some source is sending a request, okay, so second request only going to fulfill when the response of the first will be going to get by the is going to get. Okay, so if so in HTTP, mostly we use HTTP for the synchronous communication. Previously we have seen the IBM MQ, okay, and under IBM MQ we have seen the different node. Now we use the IBM MQ for the asynchronous communication, while we use the HTTP node with the for the synchronous communication. Okay. Later I will show you the HTTP asynchronous and HTTP asynchronous request and response. These both are used for the asynchronous communication. Okay. So how can we use these both node? I will show you. So don't need to worry. Okay. But when we are using the HTTP input and HTTP reply, that node is used for the synchronous communication. Okay. Where as soon as the request is sent by the client, the reply is expected quickly. First point. Second point, when a first request has been sent, okay, and another, suppose if first request has been sent by client and client has not get the response, and client send the another request, okay, so when the first response is get by the client, only the second response is going to fulfill. So if the first request is taking time, okay, then second request is will wait. Okay, so in simple, as soon if a client sends the two request, the first request is going to be fulfill, then second is going to be the fulfill. Okay, so because as soon as client will get the first response, then they will get the second response. Okay, that's the synchronous communication. Apart from that, why we are using the HTTP input and HTTP reply and HTTP node? Okay, this is used for the web service. You know, there are two type of web service possible. First is the HTTP based web service, and the second is the SOAP based web service. So if you go below, you will see another template that we will learn into the next section. Okay, so we have the SOAP, and under SOAP we have the similar type of node. Okay, so SOAP node is used for the SOAP based web service, while the HTTP node is used for the HTTP based web service. Okay, so nowadays the mostly people are using the HTTP based web service. The reason is that it supports all format of message. First reason. Second reason is that it is easy to create the web service and maintain the web service. Okay, so that's the second reason. So in with the help of HTTP nodes, we can use, client can send any format of message, client can send the XML message, client can send a JSON message, client can send a text message. Okay, so there is a no boundation, by there is no limitation by the by when you are using the HTTP node, which format of message client will send. The client can send the message in any format. Okay, only we need to configure here. Okay, and it is also easy to create in comparison to SOAP based application, and it is also easy to maintain it. Okay, so in case of further modification required, so we can quickly update the application, we can quickly modify the application and deploy the application. Okay, while in SOAP based web service, if it need to be modified, then it will be a huge task and it will require a huge effort before deploying the application. Okay, so that's all thing basically leading the people to use use HTTP based flow. Okay, and apart from that, HTTP based application is used for the lightweight load. So because you suppose there is a source is sending a small message. Okay, so in that case HTTP based node is best prefer. while the soap based node is used if the weight if the payload is huge, long, okay, and payload request is long, okay, and soap based node what I said, what is it, soap node mostly prefer the xml payload, okay. So if a client is sending the xml message, in that case we prefer the soap based node, okay. So that's the difference between the soap and the http. Why we are using more http in comparison of soap, okay, and why it is more demanding in currently market, okay. So in simple, I have explained you difference between SOAP and HTTP. Okay. So SOAP is nowadays less used in comparison to HTTP because SOAP has a limitation of the message format that will accept, and it basically supports the light and to heavy load, while the HTTP supports the lightweight payload, okay, and it is easy to HTTP is easy to maintain, update, modify, while the SOAP is not easy to maintain, update, modify, and create, okay. So now let's first understand the HTTP node, and in next section we are going to cover the SOAP based web service, okay. So when talking about the HTTP input and the HTTP reply, okay, okay. So HTTP input node is used to receive the request from the client, okay. So when the how can we receive the, because here there is no client, right? Here I am the only person that I am testing the flow and I am testing it locally. So in real world, when you are working into the project, you will having the some client, and client have different type of testing tool, testing methods to test the web service, okay. They have some application to send the web service, they can send through that, okay. But here I am working locally, so how can we, how can I send the request? To send the request we have a tool called Postman, okay. That I already explained you how when we download the Postman, okay. We have the two tool, testing web service testing tool. One we have the SOAP UI, and another we have the Postman. Postman mostly we use when we are using the HTTP based node, okay, and the SOAP UI mostly we use when we use the SOAP based node, okay. So I will be, when we will be learning the SOAP based flow, then I will be using the SOAP UI and showing you how basically we can use the SOAP UI. For now, let's, as we are learning the HTTP based nodes, so let's use the Postman, okay. So Postman is a, let me just give a brief of what is Postman. So Postman is a web service testing tool, okay, and with the help of Postman we can send a request to the application. In simple, if I say that with the help of Postman I can send a request to the HTTP input node. In similar way, in similar way, how basically client basically sends a request to the HTTP input, okay. Similar way we can send a request to the HTTP input with the help of Postman. So we have the different segment here. Here we select the which method you want to select, which method you want to perform, okay, and what is the web service URL, okay, that I will discuss later, okay. And what is the parameter, if you are using any query parameter then you can mention here. If you are using some authentication you can use here. If you are mentioning some header value, so you can use here, you can write some header value, okay. If you are, what payload you are sending, you can select here, you can write here. So if you are sending some payload, then you can select here. If you are not sending some payload, you can leave it blank, okay. So these are the something that some we have the setting, some setting you can, if you want to enable the SSL or disable the SSL, these all thing. So you can select the you can select the setting as per your requirement. Okay, so that's all about the Postman. So with the help of Postman, I am going to send a request to the HTTP input. So HTTP input will receive a request from the Postman, or in simple word, I can say that HTTP input will receive a request from a client. After receiving a request from the client, here we are going to process the request and prepare the response. So compute node we use for the two purpose. First task for the compute node here is to prepare the request, process the request, and prepare the response. Further response message we basically sends, what's the response message I am going to give to the client. I basically send this through the output terminal to the HTTP reply node. HTTP reply node has a feature, it basically reply back to the client, okay, with the response message. Okay, so what's the scenario we are doing here, let me explain you. Okay, in this example I am going to use this XML. This XML you know very well, order XML, where we have the order details. Under order details we have the orders. Okay, and under orders we have the 6 segment. We have the order ID, we have the customer name, we have the quantity, we have the total price, we have the delivery address, and we have the mobile number. Okay, so what I am doing, when the client will send this XML message, when this client will send this XML message with the help of Postman, okay, I want this whole detail, that order ID, customer name, quantity, total price, and delivery address and mobile number to be inserted into the this order database. Okay, this order database having the 6 column also: order ID, customer name, quantity, total price, delivery address, and mobile number. So I want this to be inserted into this database. After inserting, I want to reply back to client that the this order ID has been inserted successfully. Okay, so that client will be sure that my request has been processed successfully. Okay, so for that what I did the small coding. If you go to the this compute node, just let me do one thing first. Let me remove this thing. I will explain this thing later. Okay, and let me keep this somewhere. And let me okay, now it's done. Okay, so you know this, we have the broker schema. Under broker schema we have the compute module. Under compute module we have the compute create function. Under function I am basically writing some code. Okay, so what code I am doing, I already explained you. For this node we basically use for the two purpose. We basically process the request and prepare the response. So same task we are doing. I'm just processing the XML request and preparing the XML response. So to process the request, basically process the request means performing the operation on the this input message. Okay, so what are the operation we basically want to perform on this input message is the processing the request, and what reply we want to give back to the client, that is the response. Okay, so for that I just written a declare inref reference to the input root dot exponency dot order. So I just declare a INREF variable, reference variable till orders, and with the help of INREF dot order ID, the customer name, I can access these all value. Okay. Further, with the help of insert into database dot order, I am inserting into this table. Okay, and I'm just writing the all column name. Okay, and corresponding value with the help of INREF that field name. Okay. Okay, so I am just writing the insert into or database dot orders. Okay, orders ID, customer name, quantity, total price, delivery address, mobile number, values and corresponding value. Okay, so this is the step done for the processing the XML request. Okay, in simple, if I say that this is the performing the operation. After performing the operation on the request message, now it's time to prepare the response message that we are going to send to the HTTP reply node. So for that, I just created a simple thing. What I did, I created as under output root, I created a field called XML. Under that, I created a field called order status. I created a field called order ID, and in order ID, I just given an option called inref dot order ID. So same thing, this order ID I am using inref dot order ID, and I am fetching this value. Okay. Okay, so I am just under order status, under order ID, I am just setting the order ID value. Okay, and under the order status, I'm creating a field called status, and I am giving a message that order has been processed successfully. So when these two information client will receive, order ID and order has processed successfully, then they will be assured that my order has been processed successfully, my request has been processed successfully, and they will be assured. Okay. Okay, so in this way we are going to perform the process the request and prepare the response, and this further response message with the order ID and order has been processed successfully, we are going to send this information to the HTTP reply node. HTTP reply node has a feature that it will basically send the it basically sends the response back to the client. So it will send the response back to the client, and in here in the response section we will see the response message. Okay, with the order ID and the if it is successful, with the order ID and the order has been processed successfully. Okay, so before testing this flow, let me explain you what are the properties of the HTTP input node and HTTP reply node. So my responsibility is to explain you the properties, also all the properties that is present under the HTTP input and HTTP reply node. Okay, let's start with description. Okay, in description I have just written the name by itself. Okay, and I just insert description written the properties of the HTTP input node. Do you know the HTTP input node is used to receive the request from the client, and it basically sends the request to the next node, you can say that. Okay, in basic we have to give the URL. Okay, let's understand here. Okay, suppose you can see here also example written as, if you are mentioning path to service, so it will be the HTTP colon double slash server name colon port number and this path. Okay, so it will be a, here you have to give the base path, you can say that, or you can say that web service path. Okay, and automatically it will take the till here HTTP colon slash server double slash server name colon port number, and after that it will be like that. Suppose here I am using the slash test slash app1, right? So it, my URL will be like that, my URL will be like that. Okay, so it will be a http colon, okay, double slash localhost colon port number. From where we will get this port, I will explain you. You don't need to worry. Okay, and this is the path that we have mentioned here. So till here it will be a static. Till here it will be a static, and this port number and server, it is as per your configuration of the broker and the server. Okay, so if you are using some server particular, suppose I have some server like ln access, so you have to give here some ln access like that. Okay, and if you have, this is the port number, is the port that port that configure at the broker or the integration server. Okay, and this is the path that we have mentioned under the application. So here I have mentioned the path as a path suffix for the URL as a slash test slash app1. So I am writing here as a http colon double slash, as I am creating this application as a locally, and it is working by locally, so I am using the local host. 7800 is the port number, by default port number if you are using the HTTP node or HTTP based web service. Okay, and this is the path that we have configured. Okay, further if you go below, we have an option called use HTTPS. If you want to execute this web service over the internet, then you can use the you can stick on this option use HTTPS. Once you click on use HTTPS, my this web service will be available over the internet also. Okay, and here it will be a different port. I will be telling you what is the port number. I think it will be 7843. I will be telling you, don't worry. Okay, so let's first use without HTTPS. Okay, I will be later testing you with the help of use HTTPS also. Okay, now currently if you see under the advanced section, we have a called set destination list. If you tick this option, here it will ask you to give the level name. Okay, so suppose if you want to use the HTTP node together with the route to level and level node, okay, then you can use these all property. Okay, further if you want to parse some query string, then you can select this option. If you want to decompress the input message, you can select this option. Okay, for now let's leave this all by default. Okay, now let's go to the next is the message parsing. Okay, message parsing is that in which format of the message you want to parse it. Okay, so currently for me it is the XML message, right? So I am basically sending, the client is sending the XML message. Okay, so let's select the XML message for now, XML NSC. Okay, so I want the client to be sent to be only XML message. Okay, and you know the message model, when we have learned the MQ input node and MQ output node, I explained this very well. Message model is used if you want to validate the structure and data of the payload. Okay, for now I'm not using any message model. Okay, if you want, you can create the message model. I have also explained you how can we create the message model. Okay, in parsing option, you know the same this thing also. If you want to see if what error happened, then best thing is to select the complete. If you select the complete, we will see the parsing and validation error. Okay, and if you go to error handling section, we have the timing, that is the maximum client wait time. Okay, so it is 180 second, it is around 3 minutes. Okay, so what is mean by this? Okay, so suppose I already told you this is the synchronous flow, and as soon as client will send a request, they will expect the response to be soon, right? So in case someone is sending a request, in case I am sending a request with the help of postman, okay, and if I will not get a response within 180 second, then this web service will be going to the fail and we will get the timeout error. Okay, so maximum client wait time is a time under client will expect the response of the request message. If you, as per your requirement, you can reduce this time and you can increase this time. Okay, it is up to you. Okay, further the fault format is the format under which, if you want, if in case of fault happen, then you will expect, because if you see there is also option called catch, timeout and the failure. Okay, so in case of failure fault happen, then it follow it gives the failure, and in which format you want, that you have to mention, leave it by default. Okay, validation thing, if you are using the message model, then you can enable the validation thing. Okay, currently I'm not using the message model, so I'm not using the. Further, if you want to use the security, then you can use the security. Okay, okay, so now for now I am not using anything like that. Okay, now let's go to the HTTP reply node. In HTTP reply node, so in HTTP reply node, the not much properties there. In basic, in description I have written like that, this is the node name and this is the, it is used to send the response back to the client. Okay, and in validation, in basic we have the, whether if you want to ignore the transport failure. What is mean by transport failure? Transport failure is like, suppose in case client getting disconnected, then whether you want failure to be there or, so if you untick this option, it will give you option to be reply send timeout, so we can configure this option. So in case if you are unticking this option, okay, then in case of some client getting disconnect, then we will send some failure, okay, in information. Okay, so that's the thing is there. To transport failure is the failure when the client got disconnected. Okay, now we have the, we can configure the, but for now it is not required, so let's leave it by default. Okay, further we have the generate HTTP header from the reply of or response. Okay, so it will generates the default HTTP header, so you can tick this option. And if you want to do compression of the response, then you can do it. For now it is no required to do compress. Okay, so just keep it no compression. So that's all property I have discussed it. Okay, now it's time to test it flow. Okay, but before testing, again I want to go through what exactly I am doing. I am using the HTTP input node to receive a request from a client. Okay, so how can we send a request? Okay, to send a request, just copy this information and go to body. Under body, if you just click on raw data, under raw you will see the what format of message here. Suppose for me it is the XML message, right? So I will be just pasting here the XML message, right? And this, and just if you want to beautify some this message, then you can just click on beautify, so it will be looking, it will be in looking in good format. Okay, now, okay, so I am just using the method at a post because I am creating the some value into database. So if you are creating some information into database, that basically come under the post method. Okay, so that's reason I have selected here as a post. Okay, further I am using this as a URL and base path, and I am using this what I said, this is this payload as a input, as a request message, this payload as a request message to send a request to the HTTP input. Okay, once this request will came here, we have further, it will came to the compute node. In compute node, with the help of this request, okay, I am going to process the request. Process the request means here I am going to insert the request into this database. Currently there is no value into database, so I am going to insert this request into this database. Okay, further I am going to prepare the response, so that what response we can provide to the client. Okay, so for that I am just using the preparing the response as a order id, and order has been processed successfully. These two information further I am going to send to the output to the this reply node, http reply node. Once these two information will receive to this node, they will basically send this two information to the client in response section, and we will receive that the this is the order id, and this has been order has been processed successfully. It means the order has been inserted successfully into database. Okay, so client will get a confirmation, and this all should happen under a this client wait time. So if someone is doing this all operation with more than if when a request, suppose when a request is sent, when a request is sent and we have set into debug mode. Okay, and debug is happening more than 3 minutes. Okay, so it will send a error. Okay, because client will wait only 180 seconds for the as per our configuration for the response. If they will not receive any response within 180 seconds, then they will throw a timeout error. Okay, further I have set in HTTP input, I have set this URL as a base path. I am not using HTTPS for now, and I am using the message parsing as XML NSC, because I am using the XML input message as a request, and parsing option as a complete. Okay, that's all about the message flow. Okay, now it's time to see how can we configure the how where from where we can see this port. Okay, what should be the port valid for the HTTP based, and what should be the port that is valid for the HTTPS. Okay, so in previous most of the lecture I have explained you the using the integration node. So I thought to be use I thought not let's use to be independent integration server instead of using the integration node approach. Okay, so that it will be a more hands-on for the independent integration server also. Okay, so that's the reason in this lecture I thought to be let's use the independent integration server instead of using the node based design. Okay, that's both are pretty much similar. Only thing is that when you will use the node based design, you have to check the node.config.yaml file. When you will use the independent integration server approach, then you have to check the server.config.yaml file. Okay, so let's create a local integration server. Okay, let me give the server name as a server1, or let me give some different name. Okay, let me give some S13 server. Okay, here if you see, here it is your option. If you want to give the port number by yourself, then you can untick this option and you can give the port name. Otherwise you can, if you tick this option, it will take the current available port. Okay, and it will create the it will take from yourself. Okay, for now I am not giving anything by myself. If you want, you can give it. I'm just keeping it by default. I'm selecting it the by default. Okay, and I will click on finish. But before clicking on finish, if you see this option, if you will go to the C user Stivari IBM S13 workspace 2. Okay, if you see here, there is no file created with the S13 server. As soon as I will click on finish, a folder is going to create with the S13 server, and under that we will see the server.config YAML file. Okay, so let me just click on finish. You can see it is finished. Now if you see, S13 server file has been created. Under that you will see the all server.config.yaml file. Why this workspace 2 has been selected? When you will create the integration server from the using the toolkit, then it will take the by default location as the your workspace location, and my workspace location is the C user Isutiwari IBM S13 and the workspace 2. So this under this location it is going to create a folder with the same name of the integration name, and under that you will see the all the configuration file and related thing. Okay, so my integration server has been created. Okay, currently you can see there is nothing deployed. Okay, before explaining the, let's open the server.config YAML file in the notepad++. Okay, this is the file where every type of configuration related to the server is present. Okay, if you go below, if you see, there are two options. One option is the HTTP connector and another option is the HTTPS connector. Okay, if you see under the HTTP connector, so when we are using the HTTP based and we are not selecting HTTPS, then this configuration will follow. Okay, and when we are selecting the when we are using the HTTPS, then this configuration will follow. This configuration will follow. Okay, so for now I am testing a flow without using the HTTPS. Okay, so for me it will be a this, and if you see the listener port is there, listener port is 0. What is mean 0? Set a non-zero to set a specified port and default to 7800. So currently there is no port set under the listener port, but if you will not set any listener port, by default it is 7800 that I have used here. If you see, you can see I have used here as a 7800. So if you want to use 7801, then what you have to do, you have to uncomment this optic, uncomment this, and just use here as a 7801. So what if you don't want to use 7800 and if any other server is using the 7800, and if you want to use the different port, you just need to do one thing. You have to uncomment this option, use the different port here, and restart the integration server. That's all. For now I have the only one integration server under the only one integration server is present, and there is no other integration server. So I am assured that 787800 port number is not used by anyone. Okay, and this port is currently available. Okay, so that's the reason I am not uncommenting this and I'm not providing any other port number. Okay, but if your case, then I just explain you what you have to do. Okay, you have to uncomment this option and you have to provide the port and restart it. Okay, and just use the same port that you have provided here and into the postman here. Okay, so if you are using 7801 7801. Okay, so that's about the server config YAML file and how basically it takes the information. There are other information also, but the most important for the port number is this one. Okay, similarly for the HTTPS connector, if you are using the HTTPS, okay, by default port is the 7843. So when we are going to use the HTTPS, we are going to use the port as a 7843 instead of here as a 7800. And further, if you want, if 7843 is port is not available and used by some other integration server, then you can uncomment this option and you can provide the port as per your need and requirement, and you can configure according to it. Okay, and you can, and after configuring you can restart the, what I said, that you can restart the integration server. Now that's all thing we discussed about the port, listener port of the HTTP and HTTPS. Now it's long time, let's better to have test the flow. Okay, so for testing the flow, let's create the bar file, and let me give the bar file name as a HTTP, anything you can give, node app. Just click on finish, select the application, and just click on build and save. And just if you go to the, and you can see also when I have created the S13 server here, also here we will see the server.config YAML file, same thing what is present here, these all setting, these all thing, same thing we will see here into the this option also. Okay, so that's the one thing also. Okay, under the S here we will see the server name and the server config, these all thing information. Okay, now let's go to the bar file and deploy the bar file. So bar file has been deployed successfully. Let's test the flow. For now, I am not launching the debugger. Later, I will show you by launching the debugger also. Let's test without launching the debugger. Currently, if you see, there is nothing inserted into database. Currently, there is no row inserted in database. Okay, so I am selecting the method as a post because I am creating the information. I am using the HTTP colon, as I am using localhost. Look, I am working locally, so I am using localhost. Port number is the HTTP listener port, and this URL is the same URL that I have configured under the HTTP input node. And under body, I have selected the message as a XML, and I am sending the information. I am sending the request message to the with the I am writing here the request message, and the same request message will reach to the HTTP input node. Further, with the help of compute node, I am going to insert this into the database. That is the processing the XML request. After processing the XML request, I am just going to create some output payload for the response. And this output payload is nothing, under the order status I am creating two field, order ID and the status. Under order ID I am just setting the order ID value, and order status I am setting the order has been inserted successfully. And the same in message this same message I am sending to the HTTP reply, and with the help of HTTP reply I am getting a reply back to the client. Okay, client will receive the, and we will see the response here. Okay, now let me hit the flow and let's see what is happening. You can see we have received the request response here. Okay, it takes around 7. You can see here also status equal to 200. 200 means it is the my request is successful. Okay, time take it is a 737 millisecond. Okay, and this is the response we have received. Okay, we have received that the order status. Under order status we have received the order ID is the 348, and this order has been processed successfully. By seeing this, client will be assured that okay, client will be assured that my this request has been processed successfully. Now let's check, go to database and let's check it. Okay, so once I will execute this, you can see one row has been inserted with the order ID and the okay mobile number. So in this way we seen the my request has been completed successfully and it is successful. Okay, now if I will again hit the flow, let me change the order ID to different. Okay, and if I will just again hit the flow, you can see it again we are receiving the request response. Okay, and if you go to the database, You will see one more row has been inserted. Okay, so what is happening, let me just again go to explain you. When we are sending this request, it is this request is going to this HTTP node. Okay, here we have configured the parsing message as a XML NSE, and we are sending ASU as a XML message. So it is it is parsing my input message. After parsing, it is going to here we are inserting into database, and after that I am preparing this payload. I am preparing this payload that we are seeing here. I am preparing this response payload. Okay, so we have the under order status. You can see uh, under order status, I am creating a field called order ID and status. Under order status, I am creating a field called order ID and a status. Under order ID, I am just setting the value of order ID and just hard coding the information has been order has been inserted successfully. Okay, so in this way we can perform a operation where we can, now let's see the same thing in debug mode. Okay, so let me launch the debugger and let me hit the flow. Now let me keep it as this time as a different value. Let me 350. Now you can see the it has been executed, and if you go here, my request has came here with, as soon as I send, as soon as I send this request, as soon as I send this request, it came to the HTTP, it came to the HTTP node, HTTP input node. After coming to HTTP input node, you will see here we have the message. Under message we have the properties. In properties you will see the all the thing. In property you will see the this information. Okay, so what is the, so what is the protocol type, and we have, as you will also see the header also. Here header is the HTTP input header. Under header we will see the who is basically sending this request. We postman is sending the request, and what is the URL, web service URL, and what is the port number, these all thing, what is the address, these all thing we will see here. Okay, further under the XML NSE we will see what payload we are sending. We are sending this payload, right? We are sending this payload. Okay, and further if you see under the local environment, under destination, under HTTP we have the request identifier, and this is very important thing. Okay, this is the thing that basically tells the HTTP reply to which client you have to send the response. So request identifier is the very much important thing. It basically identify the request, because you know after a few minutes there another request will be sent, after a few minutes another request will be sent, after a few minutes another request will be sent, right? Correct. And every request will having the different request identifier, and this thing identify this is the request, and there should be a, for this it will be a this response, and that basically helps the HTTP reply node to identify the request to give the response back. Further we will go to the a compute node. Under compute node I will process the, I will declare the INREF till order detail, and order detail you can see we will see the information. I am inserting data into database. Further with the help of I am preparing the response. If you see under output root, I created a field called order status. I created a value of order ID. Further I am just creating a field called status, and order has been updated successfully. Correct. And further if you see it is going here, but before see that, if you see here we have received here as a error, correct? Because I am using debug mode, correct? And if you see here also, we are receiving the this input message, and it will go to the it will go to the HTTP reply, and HTTP reply will reply back the input, but it will not reply back, because if you see here, we have received an error. What is the error? And a timeout occurred during the processing. Integration node did not provide a response for a specified time interval 180 second. That's the correct. If you remember, in the error handling option, we have configured the error handling as a 180 second. So maximum client can wait for a response is the 180 second. And here I was explaining you, and that's take around more than 3 minutes. And my HTTP input route, my HTTP input has not get the response. Okay, client did not get a response between the 180 second, and that's basically lead here the timeout error. Okay, so if once we send a request, okay, what is the time value we have set here? Under that time value, response should get. If response will not receive within the this timing, then client will receive the timeout error, that under this timing we have not received any response from the for this request. Okay, now further, if I will go move forward, okay, you can see error has came here, exception has thrown here, and in exception you will see the same thing. If I will expand this exception, you will see the same thing. Why this exception happened? Okay, refuse to send a reply, because it was because of timeout. Okay, so that's all thing. How basically what is mean by what I said, that how basically my request process, my motive was to show you that I explained you. Okay, and the why, what, how basically the maximum client wait time works, that I also explained you. So this is the time under that response is expected by the client. Okay, now let me again hit the flow, and if you see here also, there is no value of 350 has been inserted. Okay, so because this request has not processed within the 180 second, so this is not going to insert here. Okay, because my request has not processed it. Okay, now let me again hit the flow. I have executed the flow, and this time I will try to complete within the 180 second. You can see we have the input message and we have the request identifier. Further, I am going to process the request and prepare the payload. You can see I process the process the request. It means I have inserted the request, and after inserting it, I just created the response message. So this is the response message I am going to send here. Okay, and this is the request identifier that basically help the HTTP reply node to give the reply back. Okay, and you can see, now you can see we have got the response with the order ID 350, and order has been processed successfully, and you will see same thing inserted into database. You can see. Okay, so in this way HTTP input and HTTP reply node works. Okay, before closing this lecture, I want to show you when the client will send the JSON message, because here I am sending the XML message. There can be a possibility where the client is sending the JSON message, right? So for that we can create the flow where we can, because http based flow is mostly used when we have the payload as a JSON. Okay, so it is mostly used when we have the payload as a JSON. So that's the reason I am thinking to create a payload with the JSON. But before explaining you the JSON payload, let me explain you a concept of HTTPS. Okay, so when I will use the HTTPS, okay, so it will be what will happen. Before that, let me just show you. If I will use this URL to open this over the internet, see whether I am able to open or not. I will be not able to open. Let me first connect to internet. Okay, I have connected to internet. Let me again open the new tab. Okay, it is in debug mode. That's the reason it is taking. Let me remove from the debug mode. Okay, let me first. You can see as soon as I am hitting this over the internet, where this flow is getting executed, right? But it will not insert any value because we are not sending any payload. So it will insert a blank payload. It will insert a blank payload here. Okay, so you can see, and you can see the flow has two requests because I have executed two times, so it will be a two request. And if you will see here, it is inserting with the blank payload. But why it is happening when I am not using the HTTPS? Not sure. Ideally, when it should be happen when we use the HTTPS, but even I am not using the HTTPS, it is giving the output. That's the totally unexpected thing. Just let me do one thing. Let me just first remove the terminator debugger, build and save the bar file, and terminate the debugger, and let me deploy the flow. So it is deployed. Let me just test it one more time. So this is the URL, right? This is the URL, and let me hit this over the internet. Okay, it is without HTTPS. Not sure how why it is getting hitting. Okay, I got it. Why it is hitting? Maybe I did like this thing. If I will go to setting, if I will do enable SSL, and if I will do again, if I will hit this follow, okay, it is getting. Now let's try this. Maybe okay, it is happening. Okay, but if you see here, it is getting inserting. As soon as I am hitting over the internet, it is inserting the value. But as I am not sending any payload, so it is inserting the blank thing. Okay. Now let me see one thing. Okay, so let's try this another with the help of HTTPS. Ideally it should not hit over the internet, but maybe there will be no security. I'm using that session, it is hitting over the internet. Okay, but let's see how basically we can use when we are using the HTTPS. Let me take this option. Okay, and when I will tick this option, and if I will build and save the bar file and deploy it, and if I will again hit the flow, let me just change the input value. Let me use this time as a 351. Okay, you can see I'm not getting anything. And if I will see here also, if I will just do thing, you can see 351 is not inserted, right? And I am not getting, because reason is that because this port is not accepted when we use the HTTPS. For HTTPS we need to use different port. So what's the port we need to use? You need to use the 7843. So let's use the port as a 7843, and we need to, instead of HTTP we need to use the HTTPS. Is the two thing we need to use. Just click on send the flow. Here SSL certificate could not get the response. Just go, let me go here and disable this certificate. Okay, and let me again hit the flow. You can see now I'm getting the response, and same thing you can see inserted into database. And if I will hit this URL over the internet, it is going to work. Ideally it should work, this ideally this should not work, and this should work, but not sure what's the problem with that one. Okay, you can see we are getting the orders has been inserted successfully, but I am not sending any the blank, I am sending the blank payload. That's the reason I am not getting the, it will be inserted with the blank. You will see it is inserted with blank. Okay, so it is mostly best prefer, suppose I want to fetch some value from database. So in that case I can use the this thing, right? So if I need to want to fetch all the information from database without going database, so we can, with the help of this URL I can directly hit this over the internet, and we will see the all the list here. Okay, so that's the one benefit. Okay, let me design the flow, let's to show you. Okay, suppose instead of this, just let me cross this one and let me paste it somewhere. Okay, suppose I have a design like that. I want to fetch this information and send to output. Okay, set output root, and that xml.nsc dot order details dot orders, and just I want to do selecting star from table database dot orders. Okay, so and just to let you know, in compute node I have also used the data source name. Okay, so I'm doing, I'm just taking the blank request, because with the over the internet we can send only the blank internet, because using just hitting the URL I am sending the blank request, and I am hitting this web service URL, and I want to fetch all information from this database, and I want to see this all over this console. Okay, so for that what I did, I just written a small code. I'm created a XML format, and I am just selecting the value from database. Okay, so let me deploy the flow and let's see how basically it works. Okay, so it is deployed now. So what I did with the in HTTP input, I am using this as the path suffix, and I am using the HTTPS. As I am using the HTTPS, so that's reason I have used HTTPS instead of HTTP, and I am using the port number as a 7843, which is the default port for the in for the HTTPS connector. Okay, and I am not sending any input payload. Okay, and I want, once I will send the request, I want all value to be fetched from this database, and and will be available in response section. Okay, so I want, once I will send a request, it will go here, it will fetch this all value from database as a response, and it will send to the HTTP reply, and HTTP reply node will send uh, all table information to the client. Okay, so let me deploy the flow and let me hit the flow. So it is deployed. Let me first hit the, with the help of, okay, with the help, you can see all information has been available. What are the information present in table, it is all showing here. Same thing we can achieve with the help of this over the internet also. If I will just refresh this, you will see all the value that is present in table. For the blank record it is showing like that, because for the blank record it is showing like that. Okay, but for those it is not blank, for those it is not blank, it is giving the whole information. Okay, so if we can give this URL to the, we can give this URL to the client. Okay, you can take this URL, I will be just giving this URL, you can take this URL, and with the help of this URL you can execute. As soon as you will execute this URL, it is going to, as soon as they will execute this URL, it is going to hit this my web service, and it will come here, and it will take fetch the value from database, and it will reply back to you. Let me show you also. Okay, just let me launch the debugger to show you how basically it is hitting the web service. Now my debugger is launched. You can see, as soon as I just requested, you can see it came here. I just executed the flow, I just hit the URL over the internet, and it came to my web service, and it came here, and it just go to the compute node, and it will fetch the value from the database, and you can see these are the all value fetched from database that is showing in here. You can see these are the all order value has been fetched from database, and same thing we are going to send reply back to the HTTP reply, and with the help of HTTP reply we will see the all the response into the console. Okay, this is how basically any website works. So suppose I am using the book my show. Okay, so book my show, as soon as I click on this book my show, okay, it basically hits a web service URL and it show us the information. Okay, okay, that's the you need to remember. Okay, so any website is not so only book my show. Suppose I want to, as I want to let me just go to different this NDTV. Okay, so as soon I just click this URL, it basically hits the web service and produce the information. Okay, so even the ticket booking, these all thing happens. Suppose on the book my show I want to book a tickets. Okay, suppose I want to on book my show I want to book this any movie. Okay, for this movie. Okay, so when we will go to this website and when I'm going to book a ticket. Okay, so it will basically these all thing happen in background but it will basically the these all thing happen over the web service also. Okay, so it basically the ticket booking, these all thing happens in web service. Okay, so without web service it is not possible. Okay, because this all thing happen over the real time. Okay, because there can be possible because I'm booking same this seat and some person is booking same seat. Okay, so there can be possible that same seat will be allocated to person, but with this web service basically ensure that only one request will process and only one ticket will be going to book. Okay, so that's the importance of using web service. Okay, so just my motive was to explain you. Okay, so that's the use of HTTP and HTTPS and how basically my HTTP input node and HTTP reply node works. Okay, now let's, for now I just explained you how basically we can work with the XML message. Suppose I want to, instead of XML message, client is sending the JSON message. So how basically it can be done? Suppose client is sending JSON message. So you know the JSON message format. Just I have written for the same XML message. For the same XML message, JSON message can be written into this format. It is similar. We have the order details. Under order details, we have the order, and under order we have the all the value. Okay. So only thing you need to remember while writing this, it will be with the curly bracket. Start with the curly bracket and all field and the value we enclose with double quote. Okay, so suppose I want client will send this JSON message. Okay, and let me do beautify. Okay, so it will be looking good. Okay, so client want to send this JSON message instead of uh, XML message, and they want a response back in JSON format itself, that order ID and it has been inserted successfully. So how can we achieve the same thing? So for that we need to do some modification in HTTP input. Instead of in input in message domain, we need to select the JSON. Okay, so that JSON message will be going to parse by the HTTP input node. Okay, if you want to use the message model you can use, but I currently am not going to use. Okay, further in process node we have to write some coding for the JSON format. So I have already somewhere, let me just copy this one. Okay, so I have already this thing. Okay, so okay, just let me copy and paste here. Okay, you can see it is similar to the XML message. Okay, there is very less difference. Okay, to fetch the JSON message input message, instead of writing the input root.xml in SC, we have to write the input root.json.data. So if in simple, if I say that input root.xml nsc is equivalent to the input root.json data. Okay, so this input root.xml nsc represents the whole XML message, while this input root dot json dot data represents the whole JSON message. So further, I want to fetch the order ID, then I can write input root dot json dot data, it's the whole XML message, dot order detail dot orders dot order ID. Similarly, for the, if I want to access the customer name, then similarly input root dot json dot data dot order details dot orders dot customer name. Okay, the same thing I have written here. I declare and ref with the reference variable and which directly pointing to the orders. So I declare a and ref till orders. And how can we declare? I can write declare and ref reference to input root dot json dot data dot order details dot order. That basically and ref will point to order. Okay. Further, with the help of InRef dot order ID, InRef dot customer name, InRef dot quantity, InRef dot total price, delivery address, and mobile number, we can fetch the value from the JSON payload, and we can insert the value corresponding to each column into table. And further, we can prepare the response message similar to the XML message. What I am writing here, instead of output root.xml I have just written the output root.json data. Okay, so I, under the order status, I under order ID I just written the order ID. Under the status I written the order has been processed successfully. It is same thing what I did previously. Okay, instead of, I already told you, instead of input root dot xml nsc, I use the input root JSON data. Reason is that input root dot xml nsc represents the whole XML message, while when we are using the JSON message, input root dot json dot data represents the whole JSON message. Okay, so that's then here also I have here I just change one thing, input root xml with the input root JSON data, and here I change one thing, input root xml with the input root JSON data, and same thing here. Okay, so here I am just inserting the JSON data into the database. After inserting, I am preparing the response message with the order ID and the status message that the order has been processed successfully. And this response message I am sending to HTTP reply, and HTTP reply will get the response and it will send back to the clients. Response will be sent back to the client. Okay. Now let's test the flow. Okay. Let me build and save the bar file, and let me just deploy the flow. We deployed successfully. Okay, now this time I am using the message format as JSON, and I am using this as a JSON message as a input request message. Okay, and I am using order ID 3456. Okay, and instead now I am using the HTTP, not HTTPS. So let's modify the URL also. So here I can write HTTP, and here I can write 7800. Okay, now let's hit the web service URL. Flow has been executed. You can see it came to, request message came to the web service, to the application, and now my request message has came here. And if you see here, we have the message. Under message we have the properties, we have to header, and you can see we have the JSON, because this is JSON is nothing, this is the message domain. Under JSON we have the data, under data we have the this whole message. So that's the reason we use, input root dot json dot data instead of only JSON, because here in JSON it is designed in such a manner, because when we are learning the XML NSC, under XML NSC we will see this whole information, okay, but here under data we are seeing whole this information. That region we are using data. Okay, so while learning the XML under XML we have the whole data. While we are sending the JSON message, under data we have the whole message. So that's region to we are using input root dot JSON dot data dot order details dot orders dot order ID to fetch the information. Okay, further in compute node I am just inserting database, and after that I am just sending the JSON response, and you can see this is the JSON response with the order ID and order in process successfully. And you will see the same thing into the here also. You can see under order status, order ID and order has been inserted process successfully. Okay, and you can see this message, this response message we are seeing into the JSON format. Okay, because we have designed the JSON format in the compute node. In compute node we have written this into the JSON format. It should be in JSON format. Okay, and if you will see the database, it has new row will be inserted with the 3 4 5 6 order ID. Okay, so in this way we can create a web service where it use the JSON, based input message. Okay, so that's all about. Let me one more time hit the flow. Okay, so let me just change the input message this time as a 3460. Okay, order ID, and let me change my name also to the Rishu Tiwari with Tiwari I. Okay, and let's keep that string different. Okay, let me hit the web service, and you can see it is directly came as a order status, order ID, and order has been processed successfully. And if you go to database also, you can see the same information with the value inserted into database. Okay, so in this way we have performed a operation with the JSON message also. So what are the all thing we have seen? Let me just quickly recap the thing. Initially we have seen why we are using the HTTP, what's the difference between the HTTP and the MQ. So HTTP is basically a synchronous communication, while MQ is a asynchronous communication. So we can HTTP has a certain time period, under that response is expected. Okay, and we have seen that difference between the HTTP and the SOAP, where the HTTP is easy to create, maintain, while the SOAP is not easy to create, maintain. And HTTP follow the in different type of message protocol, different type of can accept different message format. It can be a JSON, it can be XML, it can be a text message, while the SOAP mostly accept the only XML message. Okay, further, we have seen the use of HTTP input and HTTP reply. HTTP input node is used to receive the request from a client. Okay, so with the help of HTTP input node, we can receive the request from a client. Okay, here I am using a postman to send the request to the HTTP node. Okay, a postman is a web service testing tool to send the request to the web service. Okay, further we have seen once the request came to the HTTP, it goes to the compute node. In compute node we can write a code to process the request and prepare the response. Whatever the response we have prepared, I am just sending that to the HTTP reply. HTTP reply will get the response, and it has the some request identifier. So with the help of request identifier, it will basically get the where basically we need to send the response, and with the help of response message it will get it what we need to send, where we need to send with the help of request identifier, and what we need to send with the help of this response message that we have prepared under the compute node. At that value, that information we will send back to the client, and client will get the response message. Okay, further we have seen this into the three way. First, when the client is sending a request into the XML format, and in that case we selected as a message domain as a xml nsc, and we have written some code to convert the to process the xml request and prepare the xml response. Okay, further we have seen a web service where we are basically fetching the value from database. Okay, further we have seen how can we prepare how can we use the json message as a request, where client is sending a, instead of xml, client is sending a json request, and we are preparing a we are processing the json we are preparing, instead of xml here it should be a json, so I just, it is wrong written. Okay, it is a json, and prepare the json response, so that's my mistake. Okay, okay, so instead of xml, client is sending the json, and we are processing the json request, and we are preparing the json response, and further this json response I am just sending to the http reply node, and we are receiving the json response as a, we are sending just json response to the client, and client is receiving the json response with the order id and status. Further we have seen how can we use the https to hit the web service through the internet. With the help of internet we can hit the web service with the help of https. Okay, so that's all about the basic and use of http input and http reply node. I hope you have enjoyed. Further, if you have any query, you can reach out to me. I try to explain as much as possible with respect to http input and http. Further, if you want to do some error handling, we have the failure terminal, we have the timeout in case of timeout happening, where, and we have the cache terminal if in case of cache happen. So we can connect this terminal and we can do some error handling. For now I did a basic simple application design, and I am not doing any error handling thing. We will discuss the error handling thing in the upcoming classes. Okay, so that's all about the http input and http reply. Thank you all.